This is Lenny Torgerson with Engineering Tips. With us today is Elisa Loberg, back for, I don't know, this is like the third time, but back for part 2 of the Advanced Civil Rules. Elisa had started this topic on the 26th of June. I still have yet to publish that video, but we got only partway through it. So what we're going to do is she's going to review briefly what was done on the previous session and then continue to try to finish out the driveway and also answer some questions that were asked during the previous session. So Elisa, take it away.
Thank you, Lenny. Good morning, everybody. Just to start off, this is a continuation of some complex ruling in open roads. And to start off, last time I started with an urban driveway scenario, and I got some good feedback and some good comments from folks. And so what I hope to show with that is, it was requested to show potentially a perpendicular driveway on a curve, something that is not simple and perpendicular, nice clean lines, potentially, or a little more advanced. And then also, last time there was a quick question on why I drew brake lines over the partial offsets, and this will explain this on a curve, will explain that scenario. So let's go to, I'm going to actually move this over so I can have it on the other screen. Okay, so in the previous previous setup, this was the driveway that had been set up, and just by clicking on as a reminder, we used the DNC feature definition to partial offset some lines for the width of the driveway, and then I drew the lines, the feature lines on curb and edges, asphalt and sidewalk to display the lines that'll go into plans or that I'll use for modeling.
So can I state this just again in another way? There are cyan blue colored lines that are the control lines. And she started with the center line of the driveway. So all of the other control lines are ruled to the center line. Maybe not directly, like the tiny cyan blue lines that are out at the brake line areas by the curb. Those are actually ruled to the next line toward the center line. But then when you check the ruling of that next line, it's ruled to the center line. So the idea is that if you need to change the center line of the driveway, everything else goes along with it. And then the question was asked about, why do you draw the control lines separate from the actual line work that has the feature definition for the sidewalk or the pavement? And she's going to illustrate the reasons why you draw the control line first.
Thank you. Okay, so same scenario. I moved to a different part of the alignment. As you see here, this is in a curve. I have already added, this is a lane line, partial offset lane line. In a normal project, obviously this will go the length you need it to. For this example, I just shortened it. There's also the curb line, which is offset 6 feet. You have the top back of curb at 0.6, and then I have the sidewalk line at 6 feet. So in this scenario, I have the center line of the driveway roughly placed here. I have offset, done a partial offset of 12 feet because this is a 24-foot wide driveway. Per the access agreement, it was agreed to do 24 feet. When it's on a curve, the 24 feet is measured at the point of gutter in a curved scenario, or at least that was the discussion with our access management folks. And so I used the partial offset to show where that would where that would line up. Now, when I started looking at it, you'll realize that it's not perpendicular to the alignment. And so this is where, and Lenny, you want me to redraw these lines, right?
Yes, I do want you to redraw the right-hand side.
Perfect. Okay. So
just to show people how we did
exactly. So to do that, I still use the same partial offset of 12, and I did a partial offset of 8 for the wing or the ramp, however you want to call it, of the driveway. But to get the perpendicular lines that match the alignment, it's a little easier. So I'll go into that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I don't have the right feature definition set up. These will be sidewalk lines. So instead of searching through this long list, and I often use this match feature definition. So once lines are drawn in the file, you can match them. So I know it's going to be sidewalk line. I just match it. Automatically changes for you. Super easy. It's a lovely little feature. So we're just going to draw a 2-point line. The 2-point line I know needs to be an intersection on this side of the curb and the partial offset. And then for this one, it's going to be perpendicular to the back of sidewalk. And that allows it to be perpendicular to the alignment, because the back of sidewalk is ruled second rule, third rule, however you want to look at it, to the alignment itself. So this will match up with your template drops in your corridor file. This is how to display them correctly. As you can see, if you use the partial offset line and just drew over the top of it, there is an actual gap. There's a difference. And to get that to model is very hard. So, and I'm not sure I would not model that way. I would pick a different driveway, because I don't believe they're going to construct it. They're going to construct it with a perpendicular line. So we'll do the same for this, the wing. I'd use a perpendicular snap, go to the back of sidewalk. From there, I will switch the feature definition. I'll do a match, because I need to do the asphalt. And in this case, the partial offset shows me that I'm not quite lined up with the existing. This is an existing driveway, and therefore I need to be over here. So I'll draw 2 lines. I'll connect it here, and they're snapped. Now they're ruling to. I'm using the snaps, just the inline snaps. They are ruled to this situation. When I look at this, I'm like, ooh, I need to move this whole driveway to the right. With this setup, I can now come in and say, ooh, it needs to be 522.94. Need to move it over. Now it's lining up a little better. It's a little cleaner. You can drive into it. You can run a car turning template on it. But this allows for the perpendicular brake lines to move with the driveway. I think that's all I had for this, Lenny. This was just to show the update.
Yeah, would you zoom in there and just right there, and now do an undo? Oops. Yeah, do an undo and then a redo, just so that we can see the lines move. Undo, and it goes.
Should go back. There's one.
Okay, and then you redo. Oh, that was too many undos.
I did.
Okay,
there.
Then you redo.
There. Redid.
Okay, so we see that the edge of pavement point up in the upper right corner, that stayed fixed because it was snapped to the dashed line coming from the reference. That didn't move. But all of the sidewalk, the wing lines, those all moved. Okay, thank you.
So yeah, the advantage of this is when you run a corridor and you reference in this geometry, this is further down, we'll show this a little more. You can snap to these brake lines and the corridor will follow this as well. So you move this driveway in your geometry file, the corridor file will update.
So I think to follow suit, and then we've got a chat that I'll tell you about, to just come full circle. The question was asked about why did you draw the control lines and then draw the features over the top of them? And it wasn't evident in the easy picture where you were on a tangent, you were perpendicular, because the feature lines were right over the top of the control lines. And you go, well, why bother? But you like to have a process that you do every time, so you don't have to vary from that process. And it's to draw the control lines and then to draw the feature lines. And in this situation, the feature lines were not directly over the top of the control lines.
Correct. That is absolutely the case. Because in 6 months, when I pick this back up and the property owner and right away have changed the driveway, I want to be able to understand that I try to be consistent. You know, every driveway is the same, so that I'm not trying to figure out how I drew it 6 months ago or 5, whenever that was.
Okay, and let's respond to a question. Will you select the center line of the driveway and look at the properties? You've moved your mouse outside. There we go. Okay, look at the properties, and the feature definition we see on the left-hand side is model DNC 11. So that's using color 11, which is a weird, funky color. Anyway,
I just picked a different.
That's why they're not
DNC.
Cyan blue.
Yeah,
you picked a different one. The other ones were DNC, like 7, because that was cyan blue. Yeah. So they are construction class, and so they're just control lines. Yes.
Yeah, just to clarify, in the miscellaneous folder, there are 5 through 9, 10 through 13. Any of them can be used for construction lines. So I just picked a new one. There's no rhyme or reason. Typically, I like to keep all my driveways on one. So this one, I just picked a different one for, I'm not sure what reason, but there's no intent to change it. Yeah, thank you. Sorry about that. I'm trying to use the new 10 through 13 because those were just added. So that's all. It's giving the other colors a chance. So, okay. So that is driveways. Are there any questions about this? And I hope that helped clarify in the future, the previous questions.
I just, until people put things in the chat, I would like you to move your mouse over the match feature definition button. You wanted to highlight that you're using the match. It's just to the right of the down arrow in the feature definition toggle bar. And it's a one-shot deal, right? So you can select it, you can select any, and it changes.
It changes.
And actually, it's not a one-shot, it stays in it. You can continue to change it. You can say, oh, that wasn't the one I wanted. You can just select until you have the correct one reading in the window. And then escape gets you out of that command. And then the other command that you were using to draw all of these lines was actually under the lines command, and it's a line between points. So if we look at that, it's line between points. Just wanted to focus on the commands. Thanks. So let's see, your next step now, unless there's other questions about the driveway, is to continue with the curb return that you had started.
Correct.
And the bulb out there. Okay.
Okay. So moving on to curb returns. This one was a curb return. Let's see, bring over my quick. Curb return, we had some 12-foot lane, 7-foot bike lane on the right side, a 4-foot left shoulder, 6-foot wide sidewalks, 7 to 8 transition exposures as we calculate them. So now that some of this, Lenny, since you showed how to do the intended crossings.
Oh yeah.
That was last week. I have gone through and added an intended crossing. So this is new. This is the center line of the crosswalk, and we have some ruled lines on the 5 foot on each side to show the intended crossing. So that was added to this. And when you get them posted, folks can go back and look at how to add those.
Right. Would you go ahead and match the feature definition to the intended crosswalk? I just want people to see, now that it's there, you can, hit the drop down and you'll see that it's a linear, but it's in a detail folder. So I don't know why, but
We're just going with it. If you want
to use this.
Yep, we're going with it.
Crossing feature definition is in a detail folder. There you
go. Totally understand. So yeah, we're not going to worry about where it's at right now. That can change later. So up last time I showed how to draw for corner lines, 2 lines, or at least a 2-point line with the extend, and then a partial offset with a curve. Now, part of the way to check these curves is I got to thinking is that we need to make sure that the truck turns. So is this the right? Let's set this now.
Radius? Is that the right
radius. Thank you. We're going to put in 20. Okay, we're going to say we're going to do a 20, and is this the right radius? So I've added truck turning to this file. I turn it on, and I realize, oh, look, it's too big, or too much, or etc.
Looks fine to me.
Well, there's a lot of room there that doesn't need that much room, so we can snug it up a little bit, right? So we do. Oh, well, that's unfortunate. I know what happened. Wrong button. So now we put in a 15. 15 looks better. Probably could get away with a 14, but if you're like me, I like 15. 15 is a good number. But that leaves a little room for the trucks, so we're okay there. The next step is the bulb out per the HDM. I'm going to draw a DNC line for the limit of the bulb out. And let's pick 6. We'll pick 6. So per the HDM, it says that the parking, which is what this bulb out will be restricting, cannot happen 20 feet from the crosswalk. So that's my starting gauge. So I'll do a single partial offset, 20 feet. I take my intended crossing line, and I'm going to come up here, and I'll pick this side, and I'll pick that side, and I do not want to mirror. Say no. So that is my floating line, my construction line to go off of. So at that point, I look and I say, uh-oh, it doesn't extend far enough. We can just quickly do the extend line command from MicroStation, pick the end, and extend it across our existing curb line. Now, I had previously placed another construction line there, and this is to get the correct tangent for this curve, because this is going to be the beginning curve. Like you see over here, it's going to be the beginning curve, and we will use the arc from element, and I'm going to select this element, the first construction line. I'm going to enter an offset of 0. I'm going to enter the start point, which is the intersection point of these two. I'm going to give it a radius of 20, because that's what my maintenance folks like on bulb outs. I'm going to accept it. And I'm going to draw it just somewhere out here to start it along. Now, I just realized I did something funny. That is not on the curb line level that I wanted it on. So we can change to go to the...
Oh, you didn't set your feature
definition. I didn't set my feature definition.
You're still drawing a DNC. Okay.
Right. So we changed the feature definition. And if you're like me, you just like to write...
So you just use your properties dialog to change
Correct.
The feature definition, and you're giving it a name as well.
I just put in the feature definition, and then it will assign the number. So because there's already proposed curb or roadway curbs in here, and it just gives the next number. And because it doesn't need to be a specific name, it just needs a number. So that way it keeps going forward. So from here, I do know I need the bulb out to stop here. So now I will add another arc between elements, and I'm going to do arc between elements. I'm going to select this line. I'm going to say a 0 offset. I'm going to select this line. I'll also say a 0 offset. And it puts, I didn't change my...
I changed it in the properties instead.
I did. That gets me every time.
Use your match. Use your match.
Right? Okay, so we're going to do that again. 20 feet is what I want. I'm going to accept that, but I'm going to ask it to trim back. And what that will do is trim the previous arc to the intersection of these two, which is basically the reversing curve. So now I have an element here, and I have an element here, and they are tangent in the middle.
Now, just for those of us who you know, can't see that, you're zoomed in at a nice range. Can you undo one step and see what that undoes? And then undo another step.
It removes it all together.
Okay, removed it all together. Okay. Okay, so then you can redo and redo. Didn't have much of a trim.
It didn't have,
I couldn't see the trim. That's fine.
So you don't have to set that original curve precisely. It could have been longer.
You're using the trim later on. I gotcha. Okay.
So you don't.
So it will find that sweet spot.
It will.
So is there a reversing curve? There is a reverse curve, but you choose to use these two commands
for this situation. Yes, because there could be some times where that I found with bulb outs. Now this is specific to bulb outs. Other reversing curves could be different. That sometimes I need different radiuses, and for me it's just easier to change them independently. There is a reversing curve. I will admit I don't use it very often, so I don't know it. I'm not familiar with it as much. So
just curious.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. All right, so to finish this corner, I basically will draw 2-point lines. And I try to draw so this corner's direction will go from north to east. So I just snap to the end of this line. I snap to the end of this line. And then I snap to here. And I usually come out here and give it a spot because I know that's going to change as I go through the design potentially. But I make sure to do a inline snap or near snap with this construction line. And the reason for that...
I'm confused about what you just did. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Did you just draw 2 lines? Okay, 2 separate lines.
2 separate lines.
Sorry, it was so quick. So you filled in the gap between the arcs, and then you drew the tangent at the end. The eastern end.
That's right.
Gotcha.
And I ruled the tangent 1 to the end point of the curve. And then the second one is this is the near snap on the construction line. And the reason for that is now if I need to move that construction line, the tangent will move with it. And you can see that there. So it holds the intent of my design to follow this curve line. And, I can still move it along here. You could make it independent, but for me, I didn't have to worry about that tangent. Sometimes they get disconnected and I had to go back and reset them, and this way kept it in line with the curve because it uses the same tangent as the curve. So it just that's how I work.
So select that last tangent piece again, and you're saying, okay, so we've got a key point snap on the left side there and a near point snap to the control line on the right side. Okay.
Correct. And because all of the lines are ruled to basically 2 construction and then the end one, I only have to, if I have to adjust this line, I only have to adjust those 3 construction lines. I don't have to redraw any of the, elements in here. I would just have to adjust them. New radiuses, stuff like that, because they're all ruled in 1 unit. So from here, this also, so the next stage is I would come up and I would say complex element, and I want to make sure I'm on curb. Okay. And I start here, and you want to pay attention to the arrows because this is important. You want them going in the right direction. Otherwise your profile will have some bad behavior. And I'm at the end and I'm done. So now I have curb. I can now rename 201 because the other side's 101. That I can assign a station to. I can label. I can display annotation for plan sheets. So this is, and then I can also model from. So that's the start of this this layout, right? Okay, so from here,
and even after it's complexed, if you change one of those control lines,
it will move with it. That's right. So from here, I would go to the next stage, which is I want to know where the ramp opening is. So I'm going to do a single partial offset. Now I like to draw construction lines. It's not everybody likes to do this because I can get more rules stacked on top of each other. So I don't want to overwhelm people, but I do construction lines for all the ramps first and then draw over the top of them, kind of like the driveway. And we'll pick 13. No, 13 is dark purple. No, we won't pick that. We'll pick 10. So now I want, we want a 6-foot wide ramp right here, right? Well, I have my center line. I again set, nope, 3, my bad. I will set a line up and I will take it back, maybe back to here, because this is the path, the pedestrian path in how my brain works. And I will say, yes, I want to mirror it. So now I have 6 feet wide, right? I can offset, I don't think I have it set up for top back a curb. Hang on.
So process this question while you're going. Do you typically put all of the curb ramp geometry for an entire intersection into a single file, or do you break it up, putting each corner in one file?
That's a very good question. That's a good question. If they are fairly simple ramps, they don't have a lot of back tie-in requirements, or they're not really complex. Typically, I think I do about 2 per file. I have done 4 per file. I have done the whole intersection, but it comes down to if you're moving one around and you do a profile adjustment and the file corrupts, how much do you want to lose? Is the question. Or how much do you want to rebuild?
And it's easy to combine through referencing.
That's right.
So it sounds like you tend to put things in separate files and then just combine.
It's a little crazy, but yeah, just because once this corner's done, I don't have to open it up again, and I can adjust other corners without impacting this corner. Also have to remember, anytime you open a geometry file, then you open an annotation file or it will reprocess thinking you've done something even if you didn't. So
right,
it's to minimize the amount of reprocessing downstream for CAD as well.
Oh, yeah, and it's the length of time that takes to open the file fully too. If you've got a lot of stuff in one file, as opposed to attached by a reference. Yeah,
that's a good question though.
Now, when you want to work on those too, you want to make sure that you use the file browse and actually open the file. We know that there's an issue with this version of OpenRoads, and actually all prior versions as well. And that's that MicroStation reference activate command can actually corrupt your civil data. So don't use it. Use the file browse to fully open the other file when you need to work on it. Yeah. And you can use that, you can use your view group manager in the lower left corner to quickly go back and forth between files if you use that file browse. If you fully exit, then you can't use the view group manager. And I'm talking about the left and right arrows in the bottom.
These over here.
Yes, they'll turn green when you can use them to go back and forth. And they work very well even in ProjectWise. It will, if it's changing files, it will check in the file that you've got currently open and check out the new one. So could you demo that really quick? Changing files. Would you mind?
Let me switch a file.
Yeah, file browse. And when you hit browse, it'll open up ProjectWise Open dialog, select a different file, and watch where the element selection tool is. Oh, right in the middle. Okay, you're going to check in the previous file. It automatically checks out the new file. And we see in the lower left corner a green circle with a white back arrow. If you click that back arrow, you can also choose, there's a pick list that's available if you go more than one, so if but most designers I know will do one change and that's about it because resources of your computer. Anyway, hit the back arrow and see what happens. It will prompt you to check in the file that you just opened or free it, and it reopens the original file.
Now, one of the things to note is I forgot to save my settings.
Oh, we do have save settings on exit.
Yeah, I don't know why that didn't, it turned in, maybe it was still on. Anyway, we can turn it off. It's not a big deal. Okay, that was a good question though. Good question.
Yeah, I found that reference attachment settings typically require a manual save settings.
Save settings, yeah. I can see that. One thing to note when you are switching files, when Lenny, you are right. I think I do about 4 files and then I'll restart the program. I don't do the
fully exit.
Yeah. I'll fully exit and then restart because of the cache problem. But okay, so back to this now alignment. The next step I would look at is we are going to open a profile. So we go to View Control, and I always like to have the Plan, Profile, and 3D. And we select that, and it's going to ask to create a dynamic profile. We select there. We select the window. And did I not have an activated? We're going to wait for a minute. Guess my surface is not activated. Or it's taking forever. We're going to give it a minute. It's thinking about it.
This is real data. So,
oh, there we go. Somehow it was profile model again. There we go. Okay. For those that I went pretty quick, I'm sorry about that. So I can explain. My existing terrain was not set to active. So I zoomed out. I found the terrain boundary. I activated it, but the window did not update. And so to quickly get that updated, you just come up to the open profile model again, you select your alignment or your geometry in this case, and then you redisplay the window and it will update it typically.
Yeah. There are multiple ways to open profile models. And so Elisa likes to see the 3D at the same time, which is zoomed way in or something. Can you fix that?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to fix the red. Sorry.
And the fill is on. Yeah.
It's way it comes in. So
it's
there we
that
go.
Exterior boundary, I think. Yeah.
Ooh, I have some corridors in here. Go. Okay, so this is the 3D terrain. Yeah, I like to see it because these are the elements that I want to make sure are working correctly. And we'll eventually annotate. And so that's the way I work. Okay, but we have a profile now. And I wanted to point out a few things in the profile in case folks didn't know, is we have some break lines here. And in this new version, you can snap to these lines and these associate or are associated with elements in your plan view. So the first curve, it says it's a radius. It gives you some data at the top. If I was to draw a line in the profile,
we would call those cardinal points.
Thanks,
you would call those.
Thank you. That was the term.
PT, PC. Yeah.
But it's also vertexes. So oftentimes I will insert just a point into a tangent and it will show those vertexes. That comes in. Yeah, it comes in handy with ADA ramps when you need to know where your openings are. So we're going to go back to, I'll do level 5. So in here, I have defined my pedestrian path, but I don't see it in my profile. One of the tricks I use is I will turn on Civil AccuDraw. I will activate the profile view, and I'm just going to draw a profile line.
So let me just hesitate. You put the mouse focus in the profile view by clicking on the title bar of View 4.
You can click in the window too, it doesn't matter. But yes, I made it active. So in here, you'll see a station and a Z distance. You can set your snap to intercept, and it gives you the station of that location. And the important part of this, if you hit enter, it'll lock it. And then I usually give it a Z distance. I look in my profile and I will give it like 225. And I hit enter again to lock it. Well, what that does is it puts it into your profile window. So if I left click accept it, I now have a line at that location. So I do it again for the endpoint, the other end of the line. Going to accept that location. You can write the station down and type the station. I just like to use my plan view. I'm going to do 226. I'm going to accept it. So what this does is it gives me a visual of where my ramp is, because when we're designing ramps, I have certain slope requirements. They cannot be more than 4.5% across certain intersection values, or 1.5%, etc. So this allows me to see in my profile where those limits are. And I would do it
be like somebody drawing where their right-of-way limits are in a profile. Correct. Same kind of idea.
Same kind of idea. Yep.
Okay.
So we're going to draw another line. I'm going to just go through the motions real quick here. 225.
So you're just using the intersection snap to get the station.
To get the station. And this makes my notes on my table a whole lot cleaner because I don't have to write stations down anymore.
And the Z values aren't critical.
They aren't, because you can use these as construction lines to draw from in the future once you lay your lines out. They are construction lines, just like in Plan View. The profiles you can use construction lines. So here, because this project is working off existing, this is an example of a construction line for this ramp, this opening. I need to make sure it is less than 1.5 or less than 4.5% at the gutter. Now remember, this is the gutter line. So I would come up and I would draw another 2-point line. I can snap it to this gutter, and I can then there's a couple things I can do. I can
would you hesitate for just a second, because you are using the vertical line between points command. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, so just wanted to verify that you're in the vertical group on your geometry bar, and you have been while you've been working on the profile. Okay.
Correct. Yep. And I can turn off Civil. I can draw. So the next step, I want to place a line from here over that is at 1.5%. Okay. I will place a 2-point line. We're going to snap it to the intersection of this point. And then I'm going to come out here. And at this point, there's a couple things you can do. You can set the length, you can set the slope, or you can actually lock it to this line. You could lock it so those cardinal points, you can lock it to the cardinal point. It depends on what you're drawing. In our scenario, I just want to lock it to this here, which is it should be 6 feet. So I'm going to say 6 feet. I'm going to tab over. So now it's giving me 6 feet. I'm just going to randomly select a slope, accept it basically. And I now have a line that I can actually manipulate the rules to 1.5%. Ooh, I'm flat. I need to go flatter, right? You now have the ability to adjust based on the existing conditions. So this is my control line to make sure my ramp is compliant. So looking at this, I would be like, okay, so I just need to maybe match existing. So in this case, I am going to, I'll draw another construction line. There's a lot of construction lines. I'm sorry. It's easier to manipulate them than your main alignment for me. So I'm just going to snap to here and to there. And this is just giving me a slope, a line to see what the existing ground is, right? Because I'm wanting to put in my curves, my beginning curves. Again, I do another just like with the horizontal where I drew the beginning construction lines and the end construction lines. This is very much the same. Yeah, tangents. Yep. Mm-hmm. And so you can, from this, there we go. Even though it's snapped there, again, just like with, you can trim extend it, but you lose the snap. So instead of doing that, you want to hold the snap, but extend the line to get your PI point, right? You use the extend, hang on a minute. You have to turn the existing ground off sometimes because it doesn't like to let you
snap into it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It thinks it's more important. So there. So now this is, again, it's ruled by 2 points. And yet
you can see that snap is still there on the existing ground. Okay. Mm-hmm.
So I know I'm going to have some sort of a tangent there, but I'm not really worried about it yet because there's some manipulation. So again, same with this one. I need to extend that one out the other direction. We'll say somewhere in there. It's not, because the rules let you manipulate things, you don't have to be super precise because you can adjust them after to really dial them in. So from here, though, I'm going to want to place. So I'm just, Lenny, I'm going to just draw a profile that comes up to here right now. Mm-hmm. The other side, yeah. the other side is the same, but to save time. So I'm going to select complex geometry, profile by complex PI, but I'm going to match my feature definition to be roadway curb because this is a curb line. So the complex by PI, very similar to horizontal. You select one in, I snap it to, this is telling me I'm snapping to existing. I don't want it to, so I try to get it around.
Can you right click to reject the first selection?
No, because it cancels out of the command. So
it's easier again to toggle off.
Yeah. So we're going to do it again. Left click to accept. Now I'm going to snap to the end of this. This is my PI point, my theoretical one. I'm going to come up here, snap to this one. Oh, first I'm going to set I'm going to give it 15, my vertical curve. Not taking the vertical curve.
Yeah, undo's your friend.
Right? I already put one. It got out of it. I don't know what it's doing. So we're going to do that. Next. That is a weird.
Your length is only 11 feet there. So, and you got a vertical curve of 15. So
smaller.
Let's try. Illegal.
Yep.
Try 5.
You're right. Good point. I was used to roadway geometry. Oh, there we go. Good call.
Okay.
And then we'll
pay attention to so many things. Oh, look at the stationing. Oh.
Yeah. There's a lot. From here we can adjust the. Let me turn on the display. So we now have a vertical curve, and this can be activated to show. So let me activate it. Is that active? I now have a 3D vertical element. Now, I'm not happy with the way this looks because it's above and below, right? Okay. Typically, in other areas, you could come in and you could try to move the PI point. And if I did that, it moves the tangent, right? I don't like that because I like to hold my tangents. So the way it's set up with the construction lines, I move the construction line, the PI point moves because the PI point is snapped to the construction line. So as you see here, I can move it over and it moves that line. I I can, without having to touch the profile itself, this is this, but it's holding that tangent line, the slope of that tangent line.
Right.
Super helpful.
So you got two constraints. One is slope, the other is length, and you are adjusting the length and maintaining the slope. Yeah.
Same with this side. So I can move it over to fit it in much better. As you like to say, gooder.
Yeah.
So now I have a ramp curb line.
So you did that with control lines instead of manipulating the geometry itself. Yeah.
I found that this is less crashable. Profiles are touchy. This also allows you, if this was a point, the control lines would draw, you can draw them backwards. So this line could be drawn from here to here, and it doesn't cause continuity issues. So, for example, well,
I was just going to say, I'm looking at the 3D and just wanted to mention the reason that it looks like there's a gap in the 3D is it's the line style.
It's the line style.
Gap in it. It's not the the line is actually continuous.
Yeah. Yep. So once this is drawn, then we can throw it into a corridor.
Let's just iterate what it was you wanted to point out today. The matching feature definition button, use that. The control lines, we're seeing the facility of why you use the control lines. Anything else that you wanted to make sure people took away?
No, I think that's about it. Basically don't force the perfect solution the first time around. It's easily manipulatable.
I get hung up on that. I go, I can do precision input and I want to draw it right the first time. And sometimes I hear you saying it's easier to just sketch it in and adjust it afterwards. Okay.
Yeah. There's a
have
question.
To become one with that.
Yeah. It's hard to let go at first. I get it. There is a question about why do this whole design process when Access Ramp software is available. I'm not familiar with Access Ramp, so I can't say what it spits out, but I am familiar with OpenRoads, and I can spit out quantities, terrains, etc. from OpenRoads, which is where I'm comfortable. So I'm nothing against Access Ramp. If it works great. But typically, I don't just have one corner ADA ramp. I have full street models. So
I was going to mention that this is a really good process. The idea of the control lines can be used, as we saw, in plan and in profile. You can use it both, and it can be used at different phases. It's not just for driveways and ramps.
That's right.
You can use it for your establishing your original horizontal alignment, and you can do it before you get into the actual design of the job. You can do it during scoping, and that way, if you use control lines, you can just make adjustments as the needs change. So that's a great use of the control line idea. Yeah.
They also filter into corridors. You can use control lines to control corridors as well.
Absolutely. And use point controls to those as well. Awesome. All right.
So
thank you, Elisa. Any last parting comments?
We'll continue on, and for the next one there will be another one, right?
Oh yeah.
In probably about a month for timing, but for folks to understand, it'll go into the brake line. We'll travel into the ADA ramp itself.
Oh, and create the features that would be used to create a terrain.
Exactly.
Okay. And annotation. You talked about annotation.
Correct. And because ultimately you have to annotate it on a plan sheet. That's right.
Okay.
These 3D lines make it easily annotatable.
All right. Thank you, Elisa.